Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to 10 Tips for Creating a Happier, More Confident, More Socially Adept, More Compassionate Girl, Strategies from an Experienced Camp Director. I am Kevin Gordon, the Experienced Camp Director, in the name of the webinar, from Camp Kupugani Multicultural Summer Camp. All right, and what we're going to do today, just a brief overview of the plan for today. The webinar is scheduled for 75 minutes or until quarter afternoon Central Time. We'll begin with, we'll have just some logistical tips on how to interact in the webinar, and also then we'll also brief introduction. Then we'll get into the meat of our empowerment tips and discussion around those. Finally, just some brief information about our camp program and how we put those empowerments into action here. Also, there'll be time for questions during the webinar, and also time for questions at the end in a standalone manner. So how to participate today, just kind of the logistics of how your screen works. Where that red square is, you can practice opening and closing your panel with the tool, the tools that you see there. You want to pick out how you're going to do that. Definitely want to select and test your audio. So if you're on your computer using the voice over IP, you're just using the mic and speakers that are on your computer yourself. You can go ahead and select that button listed there. And then you click Audio Setup. Everyone is muted unless that way it takes away from any any feedback issues. If everyone's muted, and then from our end, I can go ahead and unmute people when they have a question or stuff like that. We'll explain how that goes as well. If you're using the telephone for your audio, then you would go ahead and click the Use Telephone box there. And then you should have, it's not necessarily the numbers listed on there, but you should have in that box your dial code, your access code, and your audio pin that you would select there. You also have the ability to submit text questions. So if you click on there and you have a question that you don't necessarily want to raise your hand right away, but you just want to have the question out there so that we can get to it on our end, go ahead and submit your question by text. And if there's anything that comes up, if there's if you can't hear me, for example, or if there's some sort of problem on our end, go ahead and put your question there. And finally, everyone will receive an email within 24 hours of our webinar with a link to the session. So, all that said, we will go ahead and discuss the goals of our webinar. So, why are we here? And I would love to get our input on why are we here. What do you hope to get out of this webinar? So, what we're doing now is we're launching our first poll. So if you can go ahead and click on this poll, you can click on whatever reasons that you're here for the webinar. You can click multiple ones on there. So if you go ahead and click that, we'll just give a few moments to share your thoughts on that. And then we'll discuss that briefly, and then we'll go ahead and continue. Okay, so it seems the majority of us have voted, And I will share the results with you right now. So about 60% of us are looking for ideas to help empower, connect with the girls. Again, 60% spending some time listening to a handsome young man. So you may have to go elsewhere to do that, but meanwhile you'll have me. 40% to share ideas regarding young female empowerment, 20% further connecting with the partner. So that's great. So that goes in, that ties in well with the goals that we're trying to go ahead with here. So from our end, and what we do as a camp, we always want to maximize potential for young women. And the more that we can give them the tools and give each other the tools, or give people we're working with the tools, whether it's parents, whether it's counselors, whether it's teachers, whoever we're interacting with that's having the effect on our on these young ladies, that we want to give the tools so that they can be more empowered. It's just a brief introduction as to who I am and why I'm why I'm a boy talking about girls empowerment. My name is Kevin Gordon, director of multicultural Camp Kupugani. I'm a Harvard graduate in psychology. Also went to University of California, Berkeley School of Law, and I was an attorney at a prestigious law firm as a means to an end for to move on to Camp Kupugani. My wife and I have the multicultural program for girls only, and so we have a 2 and 4 weeks for girls only and girls empowerment, and also 1 week for boys only. And we're the only black-owned private residential camp in the United States. The reason that I have the experience around girls is that I've had about 25 years experience working with children, and also specifically with girls, beginning from about 20 years ago when I first started working at a girls' camp in Wisconsin. So that is me. So kind of moving on to the challenges that are faced by girls. It's it can be a tough experience, unfortunately, for girls and young women. They're often getting conflicting signals about who they are and what they can be. They're really getting those mixed messages about their bodies and their abilities. There's a Harris poll, recent Harris poll, where 3rd through 12th grade girls were asked about gender stereotypes, their quality of life, their future plans, and these are some of the results that came from that poll. As you can see, over half of the respondents, over half of these girls, their perception is that people are thinking that they are interested only in love and romance, which can be a pretty limiting, unless you're a Harlequin writer or where your field is going to be love and romance, that can be a pretty limiting circumstance or perception. Almost 60% of girls, almost 60% of the girls said that girls are told not to brag about things they do well. And you see a lot of this in day-to-day life. If you're a boy or a man, if you're someone that is, talking assertively and strongly about what you do, that's just great. If you're a girl or a woman, sometimes that's not the case. Sometimes it's a very different perception. And as you can see, 60% of these girls are told not to brag about things they do well. So that really goes to self-esteem and empowerment as well. Over 60% of the girls responded that in school, boys think they have a right to discuss girls' bodies in public. And again, this is not this is a challenge that girls are facing. And it goes a lot to speaking towards body image and the issues surrounding that. So that's what the girls themselves think, and we unfortunately are aware of these other potentially negative or challenging influences, whether it's in whether it's messages that they're getting in school, messages that are coming through the media, whether it's TV, whether it's print media, whether it's magazines, whether it's the books that they're reading or influenced by, potential, in the community, their surrounding community, their whether it's sports or extracurriculars. The peer groups can often have these negative influence, and also the unintentional, well, sometimes intentional, but sometimes even well-meaning adults can be passing along these negative or not positive messages. And there's that pressure almost everywhere for girls to look older, sexier, and more mature than their real age. It's hard to see an 8-year-old 8-year-old looking like a 14-year-old. Hard to see a 12-year-old looking like an 18 or 20-year-old. The pressure has been increasing steadily. It seems that girls are encouraged to look older than they are. And finally, one of the kind of major areas of challenge is that they're valued for their looks instead of things that they can have more control over, or things that are more within their internal character, such as intelligence, humor, kindness, talent, or athleticism. And these are things that we'd rather see them encouraged rather than this external vision of beauty or self-esteem that's really controlling of what we see in them. So, what can we do? What can we do from our end? And then soon we'll get on to our tips. So what can we do? Well, first, we have to sometimes overcome what can be an apparently daunting challenge. Sometimes when we are, interacting with adolescents or pre-adolescents, it can seem a challenge, because we're getting, due to the psychophysiological growth from these girls, sometimes they're not able to perhaps express themselves as lovingly towards those trusted adults as they might. So it can be daunting from our end as adults or older people to connect with adolescents and pre-adolescents. But that is something that as you're genuine and willing to put in the work, that's something that we can do. And they're going through these transitionary times. They're as girls and young women, these are issues where they're forming their self-identity, and really the perceptions of others is really becoming critical in their self-esteem building and their character development. They're really caring a lot more about what their peer group says, what's going on in schools socially, and what the pop culture, what messages are coming from the pop culture towards them. And finally, there's that transition. If you're a parental figure or an older kind of, or a trusted adult in their life that's had that hands-on relationship, you're transitioning from being that hands-on manager, where it had been, in many cases, it had been relatively easy to say, okay, you're going to do this, let's do that, and kind of have them go along with it, to a role of more of a mentor advisor, where the child is needing to make those decisions on her own. And even as that's happening, she's becoming more critical of relationships generally, and certainly of the relationship with you as that trusted adult. So that can be a challenge, managing that transition. So that's kind of where we are with the challenges that are faced by girls, and how we can what we can do to try to overcome them. I will pause briefly, not for applause, but to to invite any questions at this time before we start to get into the meat of our tips. Okay, and so hearing or seeing none. Okay, I'm just checking. Okay, seeing none, I will go ahead and continue. And remember, you can raise your hand, and also you can input questions into the chat button as well when you have that. So we'll go ahead to tip number one, powerful tip number one. Provide powerful role models. And then for each of these tips, I'm going to give a little bit of the why the tip is important, and then get into the what we can do regarding these tips. And after each frame, we'll also be able to I'll open it up to discussions or questions again. When we're talking about, especially for girls, without having those strong models, then that boys have a lot of times easier access to. This can affect the self-esteem and empowerment of girls, especially regarding goal settings, because if they're not seeing those models in everyday life, then that really does affect the development. So the general tip number one, especially for female primary caregivers, as empowered, smart, and strong women, you have a huge position as someone to emulate. So because of that position of being in that situation, you want to make sure that you're accepting and celebrating yourself, and that goes for men and other adults as well. But because you are in the position of being that child's best role model, because you're having the most interaction with them. And that's what they're seeing every day. A critical piece of that is really being able to be self-critical and monitor your own messages. The days, back in the day, before even my day, back in the day, it used to be, you could say or think you were getting away with it, do as I say, not what I do. But children and maybe people in general really, but children especially, filter right through that. They're really able to see what the BS meter is quite efficient. So if you're not practicing what you preach, if you're not living up to what you're saying, then that can be a critical piece, especially regarding self-esteem. So you really want to make sure. You really want to make sure that you're living what you're saying. So if you're modeling, encouraging them to have high self-esteem, you really want to do that yourself. Modeling stress management skills. There are, again, kind of what you're doing is going to be much more important than what you're saying. So on a stress management level, you want to make sure that you are, for yourself, setting realistic goals, that you're prioritizing in your own life, that you're getting enough sleep and exercise, so that you're doing the things to keep yourself in healthy body, healthy mind, healthy spirit, to reduce those what can be those stressors, so that you're helping set a great tone for the girl in your life. And as a general second piece regarding, so piece one is accepting and celebrating yourself. Piece two, I need to close my Skype. Piece two is to make your girl feel part of a larger community. and that so you can introduce her to accomplished women, whether it's whether it's women that are accomplished, in the professional ranks, banker, accountant, lawyer, what have you, whether it's women that are accomplished artistically, whether it's women that are accomplished, with rearing, with being strong family women, and so you want to make sure that that you're that in addition to your role modeling, you're exposing her to other accomplished women so that she can get it from them as well in different perspectives. And finally, also making sure that your girl's school is doing its job regarding role modeling. So that can encompass meeting with their teachers, making sure their values are in tune with yours. Looking at her assigned reading, and if it's something that can't be often you won't be able to affect the assigned reading, but if it's something that's not in tune for raising strong, empowered women, then you can speak critically about it with her, and ask lots of questions about your school to see what they're doing. Okay, that's what we have regarding tip number 1, providing powerful role models. I'll give it a little pause again and see if anyone has any questions or thoughts or concerns. Oops, we have an unanswered question, which I am trying to click on. Okay, I apparently need to figure that out. Okay, we'll try to get to that question. And if you have an unanswered question, if you can also raise your hand, then I can click on that as well. Oh, sorry, I figured the question here. Sorry, would we be able to access the Harris poll you referenced for research purposes? And yes. So towards the end, I will see if I can find that citation to send that along as well. Okay. So seeing no other questions right now, or hands raised, we will move on to powerful tip number 2, teaching assertiveness. So the why about why we want to teach assertiveness. So basically, it's they're getting a lot of feedback, a lot of impacts from many different causes. We spoke about the media, peer groups, adults, etc., and that kind of socialization can lead to many girls losing their voices. There's younger girls especially often speak for themselves until you're getting say about through 10 or 11 years old, and as there's that moving into adolescence, those relationships can sometimes become characterized by disassociation. They're getting a little more disconnected from themselves and others. They're losing that assertiveness. Whereas as a 9-year-old, it was strong. It was rewarded. It was they didn't care. It's like, great, I can be loud girl, or I can be vigorous girl, and that's good. And then as you start to get into 10, 11, 12, there's often that loss of assertiveness, of optimism, becoming more self-critical. And often this comes from the girls not being true to themselves, and maybe sometimes feeling a powerlessness to change. And so as we get into as we can teach more of that assertiveness, that it's great to be yourself, to be true to yourself, then that can combat those socializations that can be negative. the more that we can tell them that there is no ideal, female image. They can be, our girls can be as smart as they want, and that's great. They can have a healthy weight, if it's whatever it is. It doesn't have to be the stick figures that often they might see on TV or in modeling magazines. They don't have to be sexy. They can be, and they don't necessarily have to be pristine either. You can be who you want as a girl, and girls should be able to say what they feel or think. They can say it forcefully and directly without being having a perception of being thought of as brassy or bossy or other B words that aren't super complimentary. So that's what we want to do. So some of the tips that we can do is to encourage full participation of our girls in a wide range of activities. So I'd like to pause and, actually it's not the text box, but I think we have a poll that, oh, no, we do not. So at this point, actually, we want to go ahead and have you in your chat box, which is on your, if you have your little pane open. Love to hear some or see some ideas about how we can encourage full participation of young ladies in things, in activities, etc. So let's go ahead. If you can give a minute to chat some ideas, that would be fantastic, and then we will continue to move on. So I guess in the chat box, I guess it would be more of a question, but you should be able to send in some of those. Okay, I'm getting a couple coming in. Yeah, you can go ahead and put questions in the you can just either ask a question or in the chat box. So a couple are coming in. So one comment is that we can encourage discussions with other adults, keeping the child comfortable talking to authority figures, and that's a great way to to keep the lines of communication open, so that they are feeling so that they're feeling that they are that they're being heard, and encourage them more to share with that. So it's a fantastic comment. And one other coming in. We have offer a range of participation options so that girls can choose their level of involvement. Choice is a huge source of empowerment, and then within that choice of involvement, they're encouraged to be fully engaged. Absolutely, that's another great way to encourage that full participation that leads to that greater self-esteem. And we'll go ahead and close out that for now, but then we'll have the questions available still. So when if you have a comment, feel free to share. So we will continue. So yeah, as people were mentioning in their input, we really want to develop the skills in that full range of activities. That way you're developing that full range. Also, a huge way is to make sure that we're providing single-sex opportunities, because those can be the times that she can be herself without thinking that she has to impress those of the opposite sex. especially sometimes in co-ed settings, whether it's schools, whether it's social opportunities, camps, whatever, girls may act differently and do act differently when boys are around. So that can sometimes reduce the girls' skill building opportunities and also be causing them to conform to social norms that may not be that may not be the healthiest. So encourage full participation is one huge one, and also supporting self-expression. So the more that we can give those opportunities to be fully herself, to empower her to speak her mind by making it safe in your home to do so. Tell her and show her that she can express her own opinions, and hopefully those opinions should sometimes differ from yours. You do also obviously want to make sure that there's a difference between expressing a strong opinion and being respectful, and being disrespectful. So you want to make sure that is happening. Because that can be empowering, very empowering. Also, kind of sub-tip is allowing her to speak rather than speaking for her. So you're encouraging her to be assertive rather than sometimes you get girls that are, being overly deferential or passive. Teach her to hold her spot, to speak up, to participate fully, and these are things that can really lead to great empowerment. And finally, the more you can share that real decision-making power. So it's not just little token choices. It's choices that mean something in your household or in whatever she's participating in. So she can make real decisions. Whether it's planning a family function, whether it's something in your community or in her social sphere. The more that you can get into that, the better, because then you're giving that true assertiveness and speaking up and out and being strong women. So moving on to powerful tip number 3, respecting self and body, because there is, unfortunately, there's increasing pressure everywhere. It seems, for girls and young women to look older, as we said, sexier, more mature than they are. Whether it's, cartoons with, these busty female characters wearing skimpy clothes, whether it's, popular shows with teens and preteens, like High School Musical, Top Model, Glee, where these, supposed children are, 24 years old, 26 years old, whatever. Whether it's retailers, intentionally directing clothes and with plunging necklines, super short skirts, etc. Whether it's makeup aimed at 7, 8-year-old girls. So there's that pressure everywhere. So what we want to do is encourage achievement and excellence, so that we're overcoming or at least challenging that, instead of just accepting that as the way it has to be. Ways that we can do that is to use specific praise. So rather than just general praise about, hey, good job, hey, all right, which is fine, but the more that you can have specific praise, so if it's, say if it's in a sporting realm, hey, Katie, I like the way that, hey, Katie, I noticed that you swung the bat completely level, and that's how you hit the ball. Great. And so the more they can have specific praise and, again, not have the praise be about appearance. Gender-neutral language. If we can use gender-neutral language as much as possible, then that also is a huge benefit. And the more that you can avoid self-deprecating language or apologies, then that's also a critical thing. So when we're having girls say, um, things like, I'm sorry, but whether they're interjecting conversation or whatever, there's a lot of like, I'm sorry. I'm like, no, you don't need to be sorry. You're saying a strong point. There's no need to apologize. Just say the point, speak up. And also the self-deprecating language we want to avoid, because often what you put into yourself, or what you're saying about yourself, it can be believed. So the quick question on our poll is, if you have a girl, or how you're involved with girl, want to click in and chime in about how often does the girl or girls in your life use self-deprecating language. Go ahead and click in there. We'll give that just another few seconds, or another 10-20 seconds or so, and then we'll see what people are thinking. Okay, so far we're tracking about, this is good news generally. We're getting about half the girls were involved with this saying seldom, and half sometimes, which is great. We're going to go ahead and close the poll. So that's great. But if we can crank those numbers up to 100%, 100% never, then that can be even more powerful. And I think I want to close this poll, and we should be seeing the screen again. So we want to encourage her to be her true self. So if we can really allow appreciation for who she is, not who you think she should be, or who others think she should be. Allow her the space to be whoever her true self is. Whether it's a tomboy, whether it's a ballerina, whatever it is that you want to support her, and especially when it's things that aren't necessarily the norm. And downplay appearance and weight. The more that we can emphasize, that a beautiful body is a healthy and strong one, then that's what we want to emphasize. The more we can encourage being smart versus being pretty. And especially if we're the people where the girls are living, if the girl is living in your house, you can control the clothes and the makeup. It's not up to her. So you want to make sure that the clothes that are being worn are appropriate, and that the level of makeup is according to what you think is right. And turn off the TV as much as possible. Or if the TV's got to be on, try to have it be on to positive things that are helping rather than hurting. Helping her respect herself and her body, or when you're watching TV, or if you're watching, watch critically. You can use interactions with different media as teachable moments. You can have leading questions such as, how does this portray women? Or what message is this advertiser trying to convey with this ad? Or what is this designed to make you think? And that can be a real jumping off point to discussing that. Powerful tip number 4: maximizing time together. The why behind maximizing time together is that you really get to promote accomplishment and self-esteem by really connecting with the young girls in your life, and establishing limits. So it's really that. It's not even necessarily tough love, but it's strong love, and giving structure, which are critical for preteens and teens. There are times that it seems like they don't want the structure, but they do, and without it, I don't know, we can even look at who's the latest greatest example? Billy Ray Cyrus and Miley Cyrus. You could kind of see that coming. And hopefully it will be, hopefully they'll get through that. Heaping praise and showing unconditional love are two huge topics. The number one, the heaping praise, it's really can be a challenge to so much of us and so much of society is, you find something wrong. It's like, oh, dude, you did that wrong, you did that, and it's because we've been conditioned to catching people doing wrong and pointing that out rather than catching people doing right. So the more that you can, catch your girl doing right, and it's like, oh, hey, thanks for, putting that away. Thanks for doing this. I noticed that you did this in a positive way. The more that we can use a positive psychology to reinforce positive things rather than negative things, the better. And the second, the showing unconditional love, that can be a challenge. It's easy when things are great and easy, like, oh, I love you. Like, of course you do. I'm making you smile. I'm making you laugh right now. It can be more challenging to show the unconditional love when you're at your wit's end, or when the behavior that's manifesting itself is very challenging to you. But that's a critical point that we want to show. Along those lines, really know where, what, and with whom about the girl in your life. Again, not just from a general safety standpoint, but also from that providing structure. You want to be able to know where the child is, what the child's doing with whom there. And also talk about the tough issues, whether it's, unfortunately the challenge is coming at younger ages. It can be, as young as 9, 10, 11, that, the issue that talks about sex or drugs or the things that, used to be able to think and hope that someone else would talk about. You need to do it. If you're not going to put your input into those tough issues, then you're essentially telling her that, oh, you're going to have to get that elsewhere. And you certainly would rather have your input rather than have it strictly be about a peer group or potentially other people that you don't want that information coming from. And if you can set up that special weekly time to just listen, just listen. Provide those open-ended questions so that they can just have that sphere which they can just chat. A great way to do that is to eat together at least once a week, or hopefully every day, but at least once a week. There's a huge value to an uninterrupted meal together. Make sure the TV's off, cell phone's off, computer's off, there's no texting, there's no Facebooking, and have it be fun. And then this is the time that you can, just talk things that aren't necessarily school or chore related, just listen. And then you can find out a lot about your girl's, her life, her thoughts, her dreams, etc. Then whether it's at that time or at other times, making sure that you're asking about her school, her friends, her interests. And again, the more that you can do it in an open-ended way, the better. Spending quality time. Again, we want to limit the TV and internet. Spend that quality time together. Make sure that you're attending school events or recreational activities, etc., so that you're showing that you care and you're expressing that interest, so that she'll be more interested in sharing stuff with you. And ask what she wants to do with you. Let her own that experience. That can be a time to really get out of your comfort zone together. Whether it's you can take a class or a workshop or just try a new adventure. Whatever it may be, that can lead to great shared experiences. Sorry, I'm blazing through this a little bit quickly, but we'll have some time at the end for questions about a variety of topics, and we'll open it up a little bit more. Tip number 5: diversifying friends. And this is especially critical because when we're talking about personality development, especially regarding teens. And adolescence, the peer relationships are a hugely important factor, and in fact, studies have shown it's a more important factor than the relationship with parents, and that can be a scary thing because you think you've been doing your job, and then suddenly it's up to it's really solely up to the peer group that is going to determine what's going on. And so, these studies have shown that, parents are not the only or even the most important role players in adolescent's life. Rather than be scared about that, what we can do instead of, withdrawing or even trying to be more forceful by pushing yourself, trying to push your influence, get in touch with the true role players in her life, which are her friends. So really get to know her friends, because that's where the power and influence is coming from. And if there is a situation that comes up where you need help, because you know your friends, because you're knowing her friends, you can approach that peer group. And knowing her friends isn't trying to act like her friends. We've all seen the, 40-something, 50-something-year-old adult trying to dress a little younger or be a little younger than they should. And no need for that. Be yourself, be genuine, but get involved so that you can approach the peer group when you need help. Also, the more that you can mix up the peer group, is of huge importance, because there will be less pressure to follow the crowd. If your child or if the girl in your life is being constantly exposed to different perceptions, different viewpoints, she's going to have less pressure to follow the crowd. So you can a couple different options. You can sign her up for non-school based activities. There can be a self-defense class, or skating, or gymnastics, or pottery, or arts and crafts, whatever it is. That's a non-school based activity that can also expand that peer group. And if you can really focus on creating opportunities where proficiency does not matter, where the where it's okay where it can lead to things that can be strong interests or careers without any pressure to win. So instead of necessarily thinking like sports or certain academic things where you're going to be graded, instead think outside the box. You could take her fishing, or have her help out on the car. Whatever opportunities that you can brainstorm around where proficiency isn't going to be a critical thing. Powerful tip number 6: find out who she is. So the more that you can appreciate her interests and not judge them, that can hugely be helpful in getting to know her as a person and really understanding who she is. So let's have our final poll here about how well you know your child or the child in your life. And if you can go ahead and chip in with your answers there on how well do you know your girl or your child, or the girl in your life. So we'll give that a few more seconds for people to chime in, and then we will continue on with our final couple empowerment tips. So what we're seeing here, the poll in progress, we're seeing about okay, well, good. We're not seeing any people who don't know who don't know who the child is. 0 responses for who. About 60% going towards the well, about 20% going extremely well, and 20% not so much. Which is also fine, because what we're trying to do is figure out how we can do that a little bit more, or encourage that a little bit more. So we're going to go ahead and close the poll and get back to the screen sharing. So whatever level that we're at in interacting with our girl, or how well we think we know her, you can get more information by really just hanging out, being that bump on the wall, or bump on the log, fly on the wall, when she's with when she's with friends. If you're carpooling or whatever has you in that time and space where she's with friends, you'd really be surprised by what how much you can learn if you're just being there and listening and letting it go organically. Another great way to get to know your girl, borrow her iPod, figure out what she's share what she's listening to, talk about it, share her headphones. If you got your 8 tracks, you can you can feel free to go way old school and share your stuff with her too, or cassette tapes or vinyl. Otherwise, you might be limited to the MP3 and iTunes if you got to go new school with her. But that's a great way to be in touch. Powerful tip number 7: share your history. Again, the more that you can, they're going through tough times in the preteen and teen years. If you can help anything that can help her be grounded, is a huge thing that you're offering her. So as she's going through these times where she's trying to find that, she's struggling for self-definition, there are things that you can help. Share your mistakes. She's going through times where she's going to make mistakes, or she's going to make mistakes that she doesn't think it's a mistake now, but will definitely think it's a mistake 10 years from now. It can be up to you to really open up that dialogue by sharing your own mistakes. Again, it's up to you to what level of sharing you want, because sometimes you might not necessarily want to encourage a certain behavior. But if you're guaranteed the information regarding that behavior or whatever you did is out there, so if you can share more of your personal mistakes or personal experiences around it, that can be a more direct way to show some of the cost of that action. And also show those insecurities, because she's having a lot of insecurities at this time. So if you can help by being willing to share yours, that can be great. Show those old photos; they're awesome. Depending on your age, there's some embarrassing fashion out there. Whether you're going way back with the bell bottoms and the corduroys and whatever have you, the open neck shirts, the halter tops, whatever it is. Sure, those, because it's fun. You get to enjoy them. It can be a good way to bond. Another grounding way is to discuss the character similarities. Like talk about how she's like Aunt Jane or Uncle John, Aunt Janet, Cousin Janet. Because that, whether it's positive traits or negative traits, those are things that help her see that she's not alone, and that she doesn't have to. People have been through it before. People are similar to her, and that can really help with being grounded. And a little bit, talk about what you did back in the day. Again, kind of in a fun way, not so much on the deeper sharing, but whether it's I love to put on my roller skates and go backwards and get my disco hustle on or whatever. Again, that shows the more you're willing to share of yourself, the more that you're really engendering trust with the young girl, the girl or the young girl in your life. Powerful tip number 8. Commune with nature. This outdoor time will really ground you. It's an absolutely fantastic effort to also for yourself, but as with the girl in your life, to realize that there's things that are bigger than you. It slows things down. You really can, chill out, chillax, get outdoors, really get a different perspective on life. Do those things that that you did when you were little, even younger than the girl in your life. Whether it's looking at the clouds, seeing what shapes are there, depending on where you live. In the Midwest, you can in the Midwest in the winter, which is now even technically now, you can lie in the snow, make snow angels, get outside, look at the stars. Really, these are great ways to make sure that the girl in your life is being grounded as well as yourself. Powerful tip number 9: serve others. It's great for you. It's great for the world in general. It's great for the interaction between the two of you. It's great for whatever spiritual practice that you might have. And it's just all good. So the more that you can combine your spirituality with service to others and spending time with your girl, the better, because it's really benefiting. It's a win-win-win-win-win. When making the choice, the more that you can have her be involved in the decision. So what she will find fun and meaningful. So you can have her pick that. And then just go ahead, pick a charity, and help them out. Do it, and whether it's whether it's a soup kitchen or whether it's helping clean your local town or park or whatever. You can pick that and go ahead and help them out. Powerful tip number 10: in encouraging free play. This is a huge one, which unfortunately, unfortunately can get left behind, despite the many benefits around unstructured play, which really goes a long way to engaging this creativity, enhancing social skills. There's a recent report from the American Academy of Pediatrics showing that the more a child can be engaged in free play, the more it really develops the skills. It really develops the creativity, enhances the social skills. They're getting more of the learning to figure out conflict resolution, negotiation, all these character traits that that you have to figure out if you're just hanging. If you're just hanging with what other members of your peer group. It can be a challenge. It seems like everyone wants to be so overscheduled, or people want the best, or what they perceive as the best for their girl. So it's like, okay, I'm taking her to dance class, I'm taking her to this, I'm taking her to that. And you have to, make sure that we're carving out a time for just the unstructured play, whether it's, whether they have the ability to, whether it's in or outdoors, do that by themselves. Whether it's having to get together with some friends and do that, and just have that unstructured time to do that. And if we can provide the healthy experiences where they can be engaged in experiential stuff, so that they're touching, feeling, doing, and enabled to engage in safe risk taking. That really goes a long way to enhancing their empowerment. And finally, unplug. Recent studies have shown that up to an average of 8 hours a day. 8 hours a day is being spent by kids being plugged into some electronic media. So whether it's TV, their cell phone, the computer, so they're texting, they're Facebooking, they're watching, and having time to unplug is critical to allow them to really connect with themselves, with friends, with nature. It's funny because we do that at camp. There's no electronics at camp allowed at all. And so for a lot of them, at first it's like, oh, panic. Oh my gosh, I don't know what to do. My tether is gone. I can't text anybody. And yet, as soon as after 5 or 10 minutes, it's like, oh my goodness, I'm embracing this. This is so great. I don't feel this pressure to be connected. I can instead just take the time to appreciate friends. I can talk to somebody in the room. Rather than texting someone who's in front of me. I can enjoy nature, etc. So that was tip number 10. Just briefly, what we do at camp is really kind of what we've been talking about promoting diversity and empowerment. We have single-sex camps, so we have 2- and 4-week sessions for girls only, and then we have a 1-week session for boys only at a different time. And we're intentional about exposing youth of different backgrounds and ethnicities to each other. So there's people from all different states, from different countries, from there's rich, there's poor, there's in between, there's white, there's black, there's Latina, there's Asian. So basically, people that are connecting with each other, and we intentionally give the developmental tools in our program so that they are able to establish a solid community that's enhancing the self-empowerment. We're giving them, maximizing the social intelligence skills while we're able to tap into these things. And meanwhile, it's fun. So they're getting to make new friends and have fun at the same time. So that's what we do. That's what we do at camp. So that is kind of getting through the meat of our webinar. Officially, we still have about 10 minutes, but even after that time, you can feel free to stay, and I'll answer any questions or help facilitate discussions. We have a special offer of 10% off of registration for our mother-daughter weekend. So if you're a mother and a daughter, or if you're a woman and who has that special girl in your life in whatever way, you can feel free to join us with a 10% discount so that you can practice some of the tips that we've been talking about. And finally, any feedback and questions are always welcomed, whether now or my contact information is there, kupugani@gmail.com, kupugani.com, or our toll-free number. So let's see if I can figure out the questions. And you can also raise your hand. If you raise your hand, then I'm able to unmute you so that you can go ahead and ask verbally if you have questions as well. Oops, sorry, I'm trying to get through to Kelly's question, and I am not finding it. Kelly, I'm going to go ahead and unmute you. So hopefully you are ready for your question. Hello, Kelly. Okay, I'm going to mute you again. And Susie, you may have an unanswered question. So I'm going to unmute you. Susie, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Hi. Do you have a question that has been unanswered?
Oh, just the question about the Harris poll.
Oh, yes. Thank you for reminding me, because I was going to forget that. I do have a link to that poll, and which I may have to find. I may have to find after we get offline, but I will go ahead and send that to you. And if anyone else would like that poll, I can send that as well. You can just send me a chat or send me an email. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and mute you again, Susie. Thank you for your question.
Thank you.
Okay. If anyone else has any questions, those are also welcome now at this time. And I'm not sure if I'm quite figuring out how to view questions, but we'll give it just a little more time to see if anyone has any questions. Meanwhile, I'm going to draw this great smiley face to thank everyone for their participation in our webinar. And if you have any questions at any time, feel free to check in with us. Otherwise, I am saying thank you for being interested and participating in empowering our girls and young women, and have a fantastic rest of your Sunday until we are in touch again. So thanks everyone for your participation, and have a great rest of your day. As mentioned before, the recording of this should be available within 24 hours, and you'll get a link. All right, take care. Bye.